So basically, I like to think of myself as me and my wife, pretty ordinary. About 10 years ago, out of the blue almost, my wife said to me, have you ever thought about fostering? And I'm a teacher some of the time, part-time in South Liverpool. We got 2 kids. We should call them birth kids, but we just call them the kids. And they were in a local primary. It was all going well. We lived not far from Penny Lane. And we went along on a sort of date, but not a very good one, because it was to a council-run event to find out about fostering. And a social worker spoke, and I thought, yeah, very good, nice. And then a foster carer spoke. I've never met her since, most amazing woman in the world, but she completely put me off because I tell you, she was amazing. She was a lone lady, single lady. She fostered teenagers, and she seemed to spend her life chasing them round the city when they'd done a runner. And I was thinking, I'm really glad somebody looks after the kids, the teen. You know what I mean? You think, hats off to you. But we live in a semi-detached, 2 kids, a guinea pig, Pebble Dash. My wife was working in the council at the time. I thought that we couldn't do that. But the thing that really changed our mind was another person spoke at this information event, and she was I'd say a girl, but she must have been 19, 20, and she'd grown up in care. So they call them LACs, looked after the children. And she just said, can you imagine if I said to you now, you were all grown-ups, if you had to come with me and you had to go to a stranger's house to stay, and you couldn't take any of your stuff with you, you couldn't take any photos, you couldn't take any belongings, and you didn't know who the people were, and you didn't really know where they were, you didn't know how long for, and even most kids that go into care are coming from a tricky background. There's normally, drugs, alcohol, violence maybe, or sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it's just illness or some other kind of, bad thing, but not necessarily pernicious, if you like. And anyway, this woman really put you in the place, this young lady put you in the place of going, what, if I go on holiday, I sometimes don't sleep the first night because strange noises, different, what's going on, is the door shut? And we went home and we were looking at our own little kids. This made me a bit emotional, actually, looking at our own kids. They were, at the time, were 5 and 7. And we thought, God, what if they went into care? Now, we got a ton of family, so anything happens to us, they go to family. That's the first thing that would always happen. But some kids haven't got family. So we just thought, what have we got to lose by applying? Because actually, what my wife did most of this because she's kind of the brains and the looks of the department, and she basically rung up the council it was and said, right, what do we do? How do we apply? And it's the same principle now. You ring up or you can go online and you find out. They find out a little bit about you. So I know you have to be over 21. I'm 50. You have to have a spare room, and other than that, they'll be interested in whether you can foster. And what happened for us was a social worker, and I'd never really met one properly before, rung up and said, hello, I'm going to come round your house and I'm going to find out. And I think they do it via Zoom now, I guess, because I don't know if they can visit. She came round, a lady called Pam, and went, so you want to foster? Okay, well, it's going to take 6 months for me to find out whether I think you can. At any stage, if I think you can't foster, I'll tell you. And if you think you can't foster, then you just tell me and we'll go our separate ways and no problem. And so we had this we've got nothing to lose, and we might end up, they call it being approved, we might end up being approved to foster, and well, who knows where the adventure, because it is an adventure, who knows where it'll take us after that. So this lady Pam, this social worker, basically, in the nicest possible way, poked into our lives. Where you're from, why are you here, what's your story, can I look round your house and look in your cupboards. It really is, you can imagine, they need to know who you are, they need to know what kind of person you are.
Well, I adopted a Romanian street dog, and I had the same thing.
Yeah, and that's just an animal. Just an animal.
Well, not just an animal.
But I know what you mean. Yeah. And so because they've got to be careful who they approve to foster. So it took several months. We went on a training course, and we had to kind of reflect on why do we want to do this, and what's our motivation. Just a little story there. So for me, for example, I'm not from Liverpool originally, although I arrived as a student 31 years ago next week. Congratulations to me.
From where?
From a place called London.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah. We've actually, we seem to have knocked a little bit of your accent off.
It comes and goes.
It does come and go.
It depends on who I'm talking to. Yeah. It comes and goes. And but my mum and dad, they still live in South London. They moved into a house when I was 5, and they still live in it. 45 years later. So if I go home with my family, I sleep in the same bedroom that I slept in at primary school. And for me, for me, I've got to say, it's beautiful stability, the blessing of stability, blessing of family. And I just went, I've had this stability. My kids, we've lived off Penny Lane for 20 years. I want to share it. It's as simple as that. And my wife was not a dissimilar story, but all foster carers, if you've got us all, there's hundreds of us in Liverpool. If you chat to us, everybody's got a different story. And at the end of the day, it's like, I wanted to make a difference to a kid. I wanted to help somehow, and this was my way of doing it. So we went through this process. You fill in this sort of massive, they call it a form, but it's really a book, all about who you are. And if anybody ever gets hold of mine, they'd know everything about me. I don't think they're available publicly, you know what I mean? They keep them hopefully they keep them in a locked safe somewhere. And we eventually, after some training, it was about 6 months, taking references, all stuff you'd expect. They said, right, you're approved to foster. And it is a bit of a buzz because you go, right, wait for a phone call from a social worker to say, can you take this child? And I talk about it quite a lot, and I get asked, so how much do you know about the kid that's going to arrive? And the answer is, you know as much as they can tell you. But sometimes, I've got a lot of stories. I'll give you one. We were waiting for a phone call, and you don't sit by the phone, but you go, we might get a phone call this week saying, can you look after this child? Little boy, he was 10. He went into school in the morning, said bye to his mum. During the day, his mum was taken into hospital. It was a mental health issue. The hospital rang social service and said, we've got a lady here. There's no way she's going to be able to leave the hospital. We know she's got a child because it's on her records, and we know this is the name of the child, his name. I'll give you the gender. I won't say much more. There's no way his mum's picking him up after school. Social services is now your problem. So the social workers are going, right, we've suddenly got an extra kid. Mm-hmm. Literally, I know when there's, how many is there? 1,500 kids in care in Liverpool. It's a massive number.
Really? Most
of them are with family and friends, but a lot are not. They're in what we call mainstream care. And so this little boy, no idea about this. He's got no idea at all this is happening. Social worker goes through the list of potential foster carers, rings us and says, can you take a 10-year-old this evening? We think he's from Eastern Europe, but we're not sure. That's all they knew, boy 10, Eastern Europe by the name, but they didn't know anymore. Another social worker goes to this kid's school. This is like 2-3 in the afternoon. This little boy's walking out of school, literally about to leave to go home. The head teacher and the social worker go, hi, do you want to just come with us? And he's like, why?
No.
What do you mean? And they brought him into an office. And can you imagine? I mean, a lot of the people listening, I'm sure, got kids. Or we were all a kid once. And they're saying to this 10-year-old, you can't go home because your mum's ill. But we don't know how ill. We don't know when you can go home. So this lady's a social worker, and she's going to take you to some other people who you don't know, called Phil and Helena. And so this little kid gets in this car, absolutely, how could you put it, like almost shell-shocked? Do you know what I mean? And then 20 minutes later, he's coming up our little driveway in our porch with the social worker. And you remember I said we were told that he was Eastern European. So I went on YouTube because I thought, I bet we thought he might speak Russian. I went on YouTube to find out how to say hello in Russian. Which is in fact privyet. I don't know.
Well,
it's good. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's the only Russian I know. So anyway, this little kid comes in to our house in the uniform that he left the house in the morning. No clothes, nothing, because he's not been able to get home to his house because it's locked up. And I just say to him, my wife was like chatting to the social worker. I just say to this little kid, privyet, best Russian I can muster. And I'm not joking. He did speak like this. He had a brilliant Eastern European Scouse accent. And he said, boss, why are you saying privyet? You think I'm Russian? I'm not Russian, la. And he was from a totally different country. So he was 10 and he was a boy, but nothing else was known about him when he came into care.
Yeah.
But we knew, because the social workers wouldn't have rung us otherwise, we knew he needed a safe place.
Yeah.
And we thought, we've got a spare room. We've got a safe place. We're approved foster carers. Lots of problems potentially. Well, how's he going to get to school? What's the long-term plan? Will his mum get better? What do we do next? We go, don't know. But we knew in our house he'd be safe. So we ended up having this big, long chat about where he was actually from. We looked it up on Google Maps. And then it's quite hard to have a conversation with a kid who's, you can't ask, where do you normally live? How's your family? Because, of course, they're not available, if you like. So we ended up, me and my birth son, we ended up having this chat with this kid about what is the best flavour hula hoop. Is it the blue? Is it the red? Is it the green? And once we decided, just thinking, that's a good conversation. Everyone's got an opinion on hula hoops. We could have moved on to Monster Munch or other snacks. They're all available. I'm not, promoting one. And my wife stuck her head. She'd been chatting to the social worker. Say, we're a couple that do it. We're a family that foster, but you can be on your own. That's no problem. And my wife stuck her head down the door and said to him, do you support Liverpool or do you support Everton? And he went, Liverpool. And she went, right, I'm going to shoot to the shops, Asda, whatever, Tesco, Woolworths.
Yeah, they're all available. Yeah. Well, apart from Woolworths.
Well, no, yeah, I'm showing me age, aren't I? 50, everybody, 50 last week. And she shot to the shops and got him pants, socks, vest, because he didn't have any of this. He didn't have any of this. And she got him a massive bumper pack of hula hoops so we could have a tasting evening on what is the best hula hoop. And, you know, he went to bed. We showed him his room. He went to bed that night. And you know what? He slept quite well. And we didn't make that day good, but we made it less bad. Less bad than it was. And he stayed with us. I think he was with us for 6 months. And there's a lovely little ending to that story, is that just casually chatting to him, discovered he had family back in the country he was from. And I have no idea, social workers are fantastic people, I have no idea how they found this phone number of these grandparents. Yeah. But they did. Now, we've already established that I can't speak very much Russian, and I couldn't speak the language of the country where he was from. So they had to find the social workers, an interpreter, who came to our house. So we're in our kitchen, in our nice semi-detached kitchen. It's all open plan, it's quite posh. My wife's planned it all. And we've got a social worker, this little kid, and this will definitely make me cry. And this interpreter, and because you couldn't just give the phone to the boy and say, "Oh, we think this is your grandparents. Go for it." He could say anything. So this interpreter rings this number and says, "Hello," you know, in the language. "Hello, have you got a grandson called?" I say B, called B, and the grandparents. And we only found this out afterward. Yeah, but we think he's dead. And this interpreter goes, "Oh, why do you think that?" I goes, "Well, we've not heard from the mum for several months, so we just assume that they've disappeared, they've gone off the radar, so we think they might be dead." And this interpreter's going, and we're like trying to read the body language, you know what I mean? Going, "What's happening here?" Goes, and this interpreter goes, No, he's not dead. He's here with me now." And she says, "Do you want to talk to him?" And I tell you, even though they were, I'm going to guess, 2,000 miles away, you could hear this grandma shout to her husband the equivalent of, "Get here now. B's on the phone." Do you know what I mean? And suddenly this little boy who'd had to speak he spoke good English, but he'd had to speak English to us. And suddenly he's back in his own language, chatting away to his nan and to his granddad. And some of the words, he didn't know what they were in his language. So he was going, blah, 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 social worker, blah, 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 FIFA 16, blah, 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 hula hoop. It was absolutely beautiful to watch. I mean, this is a particularly brilliant story, if you like, but every foster care has got them. And they turned out that this family, they were checked out by social workers here or there. I don't know how that works. And eventually, he was able to go back to live with his grandparents. His mum got well, and she was able to go back too. And I said to him, I'm gonna do more advertise now, aren't I? I said to him, I said, "Right, you're going back, you know, to your family. Why don't we take you out for a big tea anywhere you want?" And he goes, "Yeah, Dingle McDonald's." I was like, "Of all the places I take you, you want to go to the Dingle McDonald's? Make it supersize." Anyway, so we went to the Dingle McDonald's. He had whatever he wanted with my kids, my family. And as I say, I'm from London, and I've got this is a few years ago, and I'm not going to give you too many news stories because kids could be identified. And I'm afraid to say that I'm a Chelsea fan. And I had a massive...
you'll get better.
Sorry, I'll get over it, won't I? It's a terrible thing. Yeah. It's an affliction. And so I gave him this Chelsea top with Torres on the back. And Torres, this is going back a bit, isn't it? Torres was his favourite Liverpool player. I mean, he just finished playing for Liverpool and moved to Chelsea. And I just got this...
We got the best years.
Yeah, you did. You got the best years out of him. He was rubbish. What a load of millions down the drain. And I just got this lovely image that's in my head sometimes. Because, you know, you think about the kids that you foster. Sometimes you know what happens to them. Sometimes you don't. You know, it's you take a degree of pain.
Tough,
you take pain on, you know, you do. But you know, in your tears, you do cry about it and you get down about it in a way, but you go, we did a good thing. But somewhere in this Eastern European country, I have this little image that there's this lad running around with a Chelsea Torres top on, speaking Scouse and saying, "I used to live in Liverpool." And I go,
and eating hula hoops.
Yeah, eating hula hoops. Maybe he's importing them. Do they get hula hoops? I don't know if you can get hula hoops around the world. Yeah. And you just think, you know, when I look at my family, we've only fostered 7 kids. And people go, "Oh, is it hundreds?" I go, "No, one came for 4 hours. That lad was with us 6 months. The little man we have, it's quite big now. We've had him 7 years. He only came for the day and he's with us forever now because we ended up adopting him, which is unusual.
That is lovely.
It's unusual, but again, it's not a happy ending because we're not at the end yet. Do you know what I mean? We've made a good start, but there's kids around, and you're thinking that kid's safe because of what we did.
Of what you did.
And even if you can only keep a kid safe for a weekend or a day or an hour, that might be the only hour they've ever had of being safe. And it is, it's just a funny feeling to think that kid's running around, hopefully safe and happy. He might be at college, university. I don't know where he is, but we had a little part to play in his life, and we haven't moved house. And I do have a little dream one day he'll knock on the door and go, "Hey, Phil, it's me. All right, la, boss." And I'll go, "Hey, you've still got my Chelsea Torres top on, haven't you?" I've got hundreds more stories. How many do you want?
Oh, well, we could listen to you all day.
No, you don't say that because I'll go on.
But if somebody, that's a really great story to inspire other people to do it. So how do they go about it? What do they do? Where do they go to?
I do. About 5 years ago, there's not enough foster carers basically in the country, and there's more kids going into care. And because of things like the virus, if you can imagine, if you're living in a stressed environment where there's a bit of violence, drug abuse, alcohol abuse already, being locked down doesn't help. Doesn't help anyone's mental health, does it? And so there's more kids going into care. So what you can do is we foster for Liverpool City Council, and about 5 years ago, the council said they sort of just basically asked their foster carers, would anybody like to help talk about fostering? And I went, I'm very passionate about it.
I'm very good at it.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
and so I basically talk as much as I can, wherever I can, about fostering. And if you Google, Liverpool fostering, Liverpool City Council fostering, you'll find us. There's a lot of agencies, there's charities. I don't know where you're listening in the world, but I can be pretty sure there's a kid somewhere who needs looking after, and there will be some way of officially fostering them. It might be through an agent, private agency, it might be through the council, it might be, I don't know where you are in the globe, but unfortunately, there's a lot of kids that need looking after. They could be local, they could be unaccompanied asylum-seeking minors that have made it here. Like that lad from the Eastern Europe. I have no idea, really, how or why he was in England. I did ask him once, have you been to many other countries? And I'm not joking, he said, I've been many, many countries. I've been to Romania, Bulgaria, I've been to Norway, and I've been to Gulliver's World of Adventures. And I went, Gulliver's World of Adventures isn't a country. And he goes, it is, it's a world. And I went, well, tomorrow we're off to Iceland, Pizza Land and Dreamworld, and we'll tick all these off. And he was hilarious. He was hilarious. So you can, get in touch with your council or wherever you live. That would be the first port of call, because all children in care are actually in the care of the local authority.
Right.
When the local authorities can't find their own foster carers, that's when they talk to an agency. There might be a charity, it might be one that works basically as it's a business, it's a profit-making business, and talk to and say, right, can you foster this child? The really sad thing is there are loads of kids in care.
Yeah.
There are just loads. And so if you do ring up the council and say, I'm interested, you'll find there's like Zooms and webinars and information events. I know there's one tonight at 6 o'clock in Liverpool, or for anybody can go along. And if you get approved, there will be a child for you. And it's a sad thing to say, but, they might be a baby. They might be a teenager. Who knows? The little boy that we ended up adopting, he came as a 6.5-year-old. He came for a night or a day or whatever it was, not very long. They went, see how it goes, and it chugged along quite nicely. We with him, because of various circumstances, we were able to enroll him in a local primary school, and because he was a looked after child, basically, like, this kid needs to go here, he's had a bad start, let's help him out. So he went to school with our birth kids. We just, instead of taking 2 one day, we took 3. And it chugged along quite well. We had some moments, I'd say a honeymoon period when he first arrived. And then, as so many kids in care do, he then began to push us. His story was pretty grim, and he was going, I think he was saying inside his head, everybody rejects me. Right. Nobody sticks out. Nobody sticks with me. So I'm gonna see if that's true of you. And he began to, give us a hard time. And by that I mean, for us, for example, he just wouldn't go to bed. And I don't mean, little tantrum at 8 or 9 o'clock. I mean, you could be 2, 3, 4 in the morning and you'd still be going at it. He'd still be going, I'm not going. And, I recruit foster carers, but I don't tell people that it's going to be brilliant and little orphan Annie's going to come into your house singing and dancing, because there will be moments when you struggle. And but then after a little, was it 3 years, 4 years, he was being ominously quiet. And anyone with kids will go, what was he, 8, 9? If the kid's being quiet, you go, are they busy? Or are they up to no good? Anyway, so I went. Yes, it could be one or the other.
What are they doing?
Either way, and should I have been sitting here drinking a cup of tea calmly? I should have been minding him. Anyway, so I went into what we've decided to call the posh lounge. It's where kids aren't meant to eat crisps, but it's not that posh. I don't know who we're trying to kid. And I went in, and he was sat there in the middle of the floor, and he'd got a family photo. Oh, you can take photos of the kids that you look after, but you couldn't put them on social media or anything like that. And he was sat there, and he'd got a family photo of me and my wife and our 2 kids, birth kids. And he basically ripped the frame out, and he punched through the glass, and it was shattered all around him. He wasn't hurt at all, and he was sat there with a felt tip that you can't rub out. And he'd got this family photo, and he'd added himself. Like a smiley face,
really?
and his big smiley face with his little arms. And I was like, like a lot of kids, I think, kids generally, people generally, but kids in care, he wasn't brilliant at expressing himself verbally. We'd always say, use your words.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, look at this. Checking he's okay. You okay? What's this? And he's got very big eyes, and he did look up at me and he went, I want to be in this family. And we went, right,
no.
okay. So we chatted it over with the social workers and went, look, he wants to be in this family. How do we do long term? What happens to him? And the social workers, we knew a bit about his history. Went, he hasn't got anyone else with whom it's safe for him to live. So if you want to take him long term, it's a big decision, but you can adopt him, which is a different thing. I mean,
yes.
Lots of people adopt children.
Yeah.
Normally, it's a whole nother can of worms. Normally, they can't have their own children for whatever reason, and it's another journey to go on. Ours was a little bit different. So we just said, well, if it's a big decision, and it's forever, foster kids, you're looking after them on behalf of the government or the council or the state, whereas he's yours. And he does look a bit like us. That wouldn't matter if he didn't, I suppose. But, if you saw me out and about or our family, you just go, well, there's a family of 5.
Yeah.
And but then with him, there's other sort of bits and pieces that still crop up. So we ended up, we adopted him. He's got our name. We changed his middle name, and he's ours. And it's mostly fantastic and often hilarious. And sometimes you still see the anxieties that he's had because of the tough time. So he'll still say it's Christmas. If only Christmas was going to be normal. Say you put all the food on the table. Our rule is still he kind of gets to take what he wants, and he'll overload a plate. And now and again, some family or friend will go, why is he doing that? Isn't he taking a lot? And you go, yeah, but we don't know quite what. But he was properly hungry when he was young, properly starved, probably. So if he wants to load up his plate to feel safe, to feel secure, who cares? It's not, so what? We can always, take the sausages back off him. Although, to tell you the truth, he would never leave a sausage. He would never leave a pigs in blanket left, ever, under no circumstances. But little things pop up. Like I tell you, one, I could go forever, but one little story of the day is I'm colourblind. And it runs through your family. So my wife carries the colourblind gene. And we were out and about, and he loves it when people just assume that he's ours. He will always call me Dad in public. Sometimes he calls me by my first name at home. And we're in a little shop round the corner, and the lady who was working the shop goes, "Oh, this your son, lovely," and he loved it. And he goes, "Oh, he looks just like you. He looks just like you." And we walked out of the shop, and my son said, because we've been talking about being colourblind, and I said, I'm colourblind, and Jamie's colourblind, my other son, because of genetics and genes and DNA. And my adopted son went, "She thinks I'm related to you. We haven't even got the same trousers." And I'm like, oh, the genes conversation. Yeah, the genes conversation. That's where that's come from, isn't it?
Dear.
And it is, it's a lovely thing. Very few foster carers end up adopting, I think. I don't know to tell you the truth. But this is going to be my last story. We bumped into Pete Price once. They used to be down at the waterway down there, the dock. They used to do this duck race. There used to be a mad duck race. Yeah, and Pete Price was the compere. And and it's funny because I know Pete Price's story from reading it in the paper and everything like that, because I know he was adopted, wasn't he? And he said to this little foster kid, when he was a foster kid, he was like, getting near to the front, was about to fall basically into the canal, which is not good fostering.
No,
and
it's not good fostering at all.
Oh, no, don't tell the social workers. And my birth son was with him. Kind of, they were near each other. And Pete Price said to this little foster kid, hey, Sonny, don't get too near the water. Go and stand with your brother. And this little foster kid, not all foster kids have the same attitude, he just beamed because somebody had mistaken him for a member of our family. And it was really interesting. I think that was probably the first thing I thought, looking back over the years, going, yeah, actually most kids in care, they have this conflict of who do I belong to, what's my family, what's my background, what does it say about me? But at the end of the day, kids want the same. They want to be safe, they want to feel loved, they want to feel secure. And I guess foster carers, that's basically what we do. We go, we got a spare room, we got the time, we got the love, the patience, you get a lot of training. If we can make a kid feel safe, if we can make a kid feel good about themselves, and there'll be problems along the way, I guarantee it. But it's a massive buzz. It really is.
Well, do you know what? You actually you exude this amazing energy. And obviously, apart from the fact that you've changed or helped to change some children's lives, your life has been enriched as well.
Absolutely. And it's funny. Hey, do you want another story? So anyway, me and my wife were out on a rare date. Are we allowed to keep going? This is a quickie.
Go on.
Rare date. And we went to see a comedian in town. I won't tell you who and where, but you might have heard of him. And he'd run out of jokes. So he's going around picking on people in the audience. Goes, what do you do? What's your name? So he picked on me. Always seems to happen to me. And he says, all right, what's your name? And what do you do? And I went, my name's Phil. I'm a foster carer. And he just went, typical. My job is to make fun of people, and I've picked the one fella in the room that's pretty much bulletproof. And I did think, sorry, but it is, you feel good about yourself.
It's absolutely amazing. It's lovely talking to you, Phil.
Thank you.
Honest, I could talk to you all day.
Well, you got a few words in. That's impressive.
And I could listen to these stories. And I mean, I'm so glad that you've now got a slightly bigger family.
Yeah.
But you're still fostering, obviously.
Well, our house is full, but the kids have already worked out. My daughter just went through the A-level debacle, so she's got a year out. She's going to go to university, and my adopted son went, when she goes, I can have her room. But then my room's the box room. The box room will be empty. We can foster again. And he starts, I'm thinking, isn't that wonderful that you've got it in your mind that you can look after somebody like you were looked after? Because that's what we're doing.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if they check it out on the if there's a webinar and a Zoom.
Yeah, there's a webinar. There's one tonight at 6:00. But if you go on the council website, you will find that we do Zooms regularly. If you're very lucky, you'll get to chat to me and hear more of the same stories probably.
Oh, no.
But you'll find out lots of stories, and you'll see, because I am, what am I, a white, middle-aged, heterosexual male, married, but you can be anything from any background. Don't rule yourself out. Get in touch with your council or the council if you're in Liverpool and find out more about it. Okay?
No one could have said it better. Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you very much.